Hi, I'm going to record while I cook supper. One of the things I've been thinking about is that I have a really hard time getting people who haven't really studied abortion practice closely to understand that working at an abortion clinic is kind of like joining a cult. You go into this subculture where things are very, very different. You kind of live in abortion land. And abortion land has some very different rules and values from where most people live. And the best way I can kind of explain how this abortion land cult kind of works is looking at a really old case from clear back in 1977. Now, the reason I'm taking this case that's so old, this 1977 case, is because of how clearly it illustrates the difference between abortion land and the land where pretty much everybody else lives. Okay, so it really illustrates why, to me, the shocking thing about Kermit Gosnell wasn't what he did, but that he was successfully prosecuted for it. That, to me, was the surprising thing. And I think after I take you on this little trip to abortion land, you might understand that a little better. Now, back in 1977, a high school student named Mary W. went to her OBGYN, and he examined her and told her that she was 28 weeks pregnant, which even with the technology back then, that was a viable baby, 28 weeks. And he told her she was too far along for an abortion and offered to make an adoption referral for her. Well, somehow Mary found out that another doctor, Dr. William Baxter Waddill, W-A-D-D-I-L-L, I believe. I'm going to do this off the top of my head. If I get anything off, forgive me and correct me. But at any rate, she found out that Waddill wasn't the least bit put off by how far advanced her pregnancy was. He was more than willing to go ahead and do this abortion. So at that time, these late abortions were done with a method called saline instillation. I-N-S-T-I-L-L-A-T-I-O-N. So it's instillation, not installation. And basically it involved taking a gigantic syringe, kind of like for amniocentesis. Well, the same thing as for amniocentesis. It's also called an amniocentesis abortion, where you go in and you take out as much amniotic fluid as you can and you replace it with a really strong sterile salt solution. And what that does is it breaks down the baby's fine blood vessels. You know, the baby swallows it, the baby breathes it, it gets in the baby's eyes, and it, you know, the blood vessels break down and the baby dies. And then typically after the baby dies, then, you know, the mother's body says, okay, dead baby, let's expel this, and out the baby comes. So Waddill injected the saline into Mary's uterus and left her there at the hospital. And that night, she expelled a 2-pound, 8-ounce baby girl. And a nurse came and saw the baby and was, you know, this was where they do abortions. This was the abortion ward. So the nurse did what she was expected to do, which is you pick up the baby to put it in a bucket and send it to the pathology lab. Well, the nurse picked up the baby and noticed that she was breathing and crying. Well, you would think that you're in a hospital, there's a baby, it's alive, it's breathing, it's crying. You take it to the nursery and get medical care for the baby, right? That's normal land. But this nurse was not working in normal land. This nurse was working in abortion land. And in abortion land, yeah, dead baby is what you're expecting. Live baby is not on the job description. So she wasn't quite sure what to do. And another nurse came over. And again, this nurse is working in abortion land and tells her, well, put it in a bucket and take it to the path lab. That's what you do. And another nurse also testified that she saw that the baby was alive, but she didn't get involved at all. She didn't want to discuss this situation in front of Mary, lest she distress her. So these three nurses, okay, are in a hospital looking at a live baby and are bewildered and unable to figure out what the right thing to do is. This is abortion land, where a nurse doesn't know that you take a live baby to the nursery. That's abortion land. So the first nurse went and got her supervisor, and the supervisor probably was, over the whole OBGYN unit, not just in the abortion ward. So she probably didn't live quite as centered in abortion land as these other three nurses did. And she took the baby to the nursery and called Waddill. Well, once the baby's in the nursery, the baby is not in abortion land anymore. So the nurses there treat the baby just like any other baby. So one nurse puts the baby in an isolette and checks her pulse and starts providing respiratory support. And she asks another nurse for help to intubate the baby. That's when you put in a breathing tube to help the baby breathe. And this is normal NICU care. This isn't like they were doing something extraordinary and out of the way. They're just treating Mary's baby like they would any other baby. Well, in the meantime, the nursing supervisor called Waddill. He comes in and he chases everybody away. Don't do a goddamn thing for that baby, he tells them. Now, he had called another doctor, Dr. Cornelson, and later on, Waddill was tried for what he did to Mary's baby, and they played the recording of that call where he said, sorry to drag you into this, but we had a baby come out from an abortion. It can't live. Just remember what I told you. As long as we're all telling the same story, nobody can accuse us of anything. There's not going to be any trouble. Don't get squirrely. Just come in, say that the baby had no pulse, and go home, and we'll all be okay. So obviously, Waddill knew that he might end up with a live baby. He knew that the law was, if there was a newborn in distress, you had to call in a neonatologist. So he followed the law. He called the neonatologist. But evidently, he had already planned in advance with this particular doctor that, look, if I get a live birth, I call you, you come in, you say, nah, it was dead when I got here and we're all fine. Well, Dr. Cornelson came and he looks, and there's Waddill in the nursery standing over what looks to this neonatologist like a 31-week baby, which is a feed and grow. This is a baby that's going to live. And this baby has bruises on her neck. And Waddill's pressing on the baby's neck, going, I can't find the goddamn trachea. This baby won't stop breathing. And Cornelson later testified that he said, why not leave the baby alone? And Waddill said, this baby came out from a saline abortion. It can't live or it will be a big mess, meaning I'll get my ass sewed off. Which, yeah, that's a botched abortion. Okay, this woman has paid to have no live baby come out. Not live baby come out, dead baby come out. Live baby come out, that's malpractice. You failed to do what you were paid to do, which was make sure that the baby was dead when it came out. So Waddill then, I guess some of the nurses wandered back in when Dr. Cornelson came, and Waddill told one of the nurses to get a syringe full of potassium chloride to inject into the baby to stop its heart. And Cornelson said, no, don't get it. And then Waddill asked for a bucket to drown the baby in. And Cornelson said no, so Waddill just finished strangling Mary's baby. Now, because Mary's baby died in the NICU instead of the abortion unit, the baby did not just go to the pathology lab. The baby went for an autopsy. And at autopsy, they concluded the baby was from 29 to 31 weeks, which is consistent with what Dr. Cornelson said. Yes, she had survived a saline abortion, but most of the damage was just to the placenta and the small bowel. There was not sufficient injury from that saline abortion that this baby had suffered a fatal injury. Mary's baby was perfectly capable of surviving. Her injuries were not lethal. The examination of her lungs indicated that she had been alive and breathing for at least 30 minutes, and the cause of death was manual strangulation. Now, this would seem like an open and shut case, right? Okay. Strangles a baby in front of a neonatologist, a couple of NICU nurses, an emergency room doctor poked his head in to see what was going on. He strangles a baby in a hospital nursery in front of all these witnesses. Should be open and shut case, right? Especially since the autopsy said the abortion did not fatally injure this baby and the cause of death was manual strangulation. But during deliberations, the jurors asked for clarification on some procedural point, and that's when a few phone calls uncovered that somewhere in the books in California, dealing with healthcare was some weird definition of the word death. And apparently one of the jurors lived in abortion land, at least one of the jurors, and was able to say, well, yeah, he strangled the baby in front of all these people, but that doesn't prove that he caused the baby's death under this particular definition of death. They got a hung jury. Okay, so he got away with it. And he did not lose his license. He was still able to practice. And as of the year 2000, he was doing abortions at Family Planning Associates Medical Group, the largest for-profit chain of abortion clinics in the world, and kind of the National Abortion Federation flagship. So strangling this baby in front of all of those witnesses did not make him somebody that they wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. He lived in abortion land. He worked in abortion land, and he got a good lawyer. Yay! Hooray for William Waddill. He beat the rap. And, if you look, these abortion lobbies, it's like they are opposed to Born Alive Infant Protection Act. Because once the baby comes out, it's supposed to die. No, mommy paid for dead baby. We need to provide dead baby. And they'll tell you they wrap the baby in a towel and let it die. And the only thing that Waddill did is what Gosnell did, which is instead of letting the baby die of neglect, which is how you're supposed to do it, he took active means to kill the baby. You're supposed to wrap the baby in a towel and just stick it off and wait for it to die. And there have been babies, they go back hours later, they go back the next day, and that baby's still alive. That's what's normal in abortion land. And you have to think of it in these terms. When the woman goes in for an abortion, she isn't thinking of the baby that she's carrying. She's thinking generically, a baby. I cannot have a baby in my life right now. A baby would really derail all of my plans. I need to not have a baby. So she's wanting to get out of this situation. But the doctor most of the time doesn't even know what her situation is. He's not dealing with her situation. He is simply dealing with, he walks into the room, she's already in the stirrups. His job is to convert the live fetus to a dead baby. So Waddill comes in and there's Mary, and his job is to convert Mary's 2-pound, 8-ounce fetus to a dead baby. And he did that. And there is no changing course. I mean, think about it. Your job is to make sure that that entity that's in Mary's womb dies. Your job is Mary cannot go home with a live baby. That entity that is in her uterus, that 2 pounds, 8 ounces of wriggling flesh, had better not still be alive when you're done with it. Okay? And okay, let's take it out feet first. The feet are out. The torso's out. The arms are out. The shoulders are out. Okay? Still, you can kill this baby, right? It's not born yet. You're not going to suddenly, okay, heads out. 100% of the baby's out. It's a couple inches away. I'm going to call the NICU. Let's save this baby. You don't make that. You don't go from 1 second, I must make sure that this baby dies, to a second later, I have to do everything I would do if this was a wanted baby. And this is something you see in their writings again and again and again and again and again. And when they talk and when they write, whether that's a baby or medical waste entirely depends on what that mother intended. If she intends for a live baby from the start, you see that pregnancy through to a live birth. If she intends a dead baby, it is medical waste. It's your job to make sure she does not get a live baby. And they're not going to make that 180 turn and call for the NICU doctor. And especially when they're in a freestanding clinic, they don't want an ambulance coming out and the pro-lifers hearing on the scanner, we have a live birth from an abortion. Do you think they're nuts? Seriously, do you think they want the pro-lifers getting that 911 tape and pasting it all over YouTube that they had a live birth at that clinic? They are not crazy. These people are not stupid. They're not crazy. They are not gonna let that baby live. They're gonna do what they routinely do. If there's no fetal tissue ordered for that baby, they're gonna wrap it in a towel. If there has been fetal tissue ordered, they're going to send it to the POC room, which stands for products of conception, but some clinics call it pieces of children. And they're going to cut that baby open and take the organs that were ordered. Because the entire mindset is dead baby and live baby isn't on their job description. And to think that they are going to do a 180 and suddenly start caring for that baby is like expecting when Guido the hitman is supposed to kill Mr. Spinalzo. And he goes over and he shoots Mr. Spinalzo. Mr. Spinalzo falls down and he's moaning in pain and crying out for help. You would have to be out of your mind to think that Guido the hitman's going to call an ambulance for Mr. Spinalzo. His job is for Mr. Spinalzo to end up dead. So Guido has two choices. Guido can just let Mr. Spinalzo bleed out and leave, which is kind of the wrap a baby in the towel and stick it in the utility closet until it dies, which is the accepted thing to do. That's what they do. Okay, there's case after case after case. We've got them on tape saying this. We've got writing when they say this. The woman testified, that was a man testified in the Gosnell trial. Baby comes out alive, we keep it warm and let it die. That's what they do. That's normal in abortion land. Getting help for that baby is no more normal than for Guido the hitman to call an ambulance for Mr. Spinalzo. He's either going to figure, nobody's going to find him here. He'll bleed out by the time anybody comes around. Or he'll think, well, somebody might show up before he dies, so I better finish the job and pop, put another bullet in Mr. Spinalzo. But the abortionist is not going to seek medical care for that baby any more than Guido is going to seek it for Mr. Spinalzo. And until you get your head wrapped around that abortion land is a different world, where what Gosnell did to those babies was only shocking because it was unnecessary. He could have just wrapped him in a towel and not gotten in any trouble. Why did he have to be so stupid to use the scissors? He could have used towel and time. And the most he would have been guilty of was breaking the Abortion Control Act. He would not have gone on trial for his life if he had just used a towel and time instead of a pair of scissors, because in abortion land, you pay for a dead baby, you get a dead baby. Wrap your head around that. That is the reality. That's why they oppose Born Alive Infant Protection Acts. And that's why Gosnell is not delusional. He's like, they all do it. Why? I'm going to be vindicated. Because in abortion land, he didn't really do anything wrong. He was just stupid. Not wrong, stupid.